It's the caliber of talent you're able to attract to work for your organization. And it's also the quality of clients that you're able to attract to work with you. The thing that happens once you exit a business too is the cash flow from the business is not coming in anymore. And you're left with this bucket of money and you have to make that last. And it's a weird feeling because if it starts to deplete, then you start to get in this sort of panic mode. The diligence phase is, as you can appreciate, horrific and yes, all consuming. They leave no stone unturned. We're going to build a team of A players, attract the best from our competitors, and we're going to go after the A+ clients. I guess my goal really was to achieve, I guess, what I call escape velocity. And that was to, when you achieve all your hopes and dreams, you finally wake up and your problems are still the same, but your hopes and dreams are gone.
Hello again and welcome back to NexChapter, recorded right here in the Republic studio. Think of it as the Republic for founders and entrepreneurs, where we share wisdom and have fun and celebrate the journey of another entrepreneur. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing again today. I'm Raman Sehgal. I am the author of The Floundering Founder, the Toronto chapter lead for PEF, and your host of the show. Every show that we do is for founders that are scaling organizations or for founders that have sold and are trying to figure out what the heck to do next. Every episode that we do goes through the 3 T's: the trajectory of the business, the transaction itself, and the transition after exits. And think of it as unfiltered wisdom from post-exit founders. You eager-eyed listeners and, well, not listeners, viewers will notice that I'm wearing a different shirt to the one that I do the podcast in today. That's because I did it last night. Sorry, I'm doing the introduction today. I was going to make up some excuse about how I spilt something on my top, which would have been very on brand, I have to say, but that wouldn't have been untrue. But no, I've had lots of interviews, and so I couldn't quite squeeze in the introduction last night. So my guest today is Ryan Atkinson. Ryan is a great guy and a serial entrepreneur, an investor with more than 25 years of experience building, scaling, and successfully exiting recruitment and professional services businesses. He's not done it just once, he's done it twice. He co-founded and led some of Canada's fastest growing staffing and technology firms, including Redwood Global, Direqlink, and Core Resources, a national leader in staff augmentation and Agile consulting. Known for his ability to spot market gaps and move very fast, Ryan has built businesses through every phase of the cycle: startup, hypergrowth, acquisition, and integration. He grew Redwood Global from 2 founders to 30 million in annual revenue, earning multiple Profit 500 awards before selling to SI Systems. And at Core, he helped thousands of enterprise clients modernize their workforce through agile transformation and cloud-based staffing models. A lifelong problem solver, Ryan's superpower is turning complexity into clarity, whether that means building go-to-market engines, scaling sales teams, or closing deals others can't. He leads with energy, candor, and bias for action, helping founders and executives push through the noise to execute. So that is the deal of who Ryan is, and you're going to really enjoy today's show. I have to say, he is a very kind of on-brand Canadian guy, just super nice. Built 2 amazing businesses, followed a similar playbook for both, but did some interesting tweaks the second time as well. And it's amazing to have someone like this on the show who's been through it not once but twice, and interesting to hear the contrast of the 2 journeys. So please follow us wherever you're listening or watching today, and maybe give us a kind rating, share us with someone that you listen to, maybe give us some feedback as well. And above all, listener/viewer, enjoy today's show. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Raman. Great to be here.
Yeah, great having you. And as someone that has co-founded a recruitment business, a talent business, I'm hoping to learn lots from you today. That business is about 15 people in the kind of life science sector. The company called Lead Candidate. It's growing quite nicely, but I'm hoping to extract some great insights from you too that might help the team on that journey. But before we start, we always start with our ritual Ryan, which is tell us about what drink you have in front of you today that you brought to the show.
Well, today, if you'd asked me this 14 months ago, we were late enough in the afternoon, it might have been something with a bit of alcohol in it, but I actually gave up alcohol 14 months ago.
Good
not
for
just,
you.
Not because I had a problem with it per se, but just because all the press out there kind of led me to think maybe it was just time to make some healthier choices because it was just, a bit too much part of the lifestyle. But I've kind of gone down a different path today. I'm drinking a product called Sweet Justice. This is their OG ginger ale flavor.
Ooh.
And it's a company I'm a partial investor in. A friend of mine started the business. It's a THC infused line of beverages. So they make colas, ginger ales, fruit punches, a whole bunch of really delicious products. And so I find it to be a healthier alternative, but still can make things a little more fun once in a while.
THC is like is cannabis, is it?
Yes, indeed. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Oh, cool. So it gives you, so you're going to be nice and chilled for today's conversation.
Exactly.
So, yeah, well, I knew I was interviewing a Canadian today, a fellow, entrepreneur in Toronto. So I came with my Tim Hortons tea today. So I've got an apple and cinnamon tea from Tim.
Oh,
well, it's not
beautiful.
from Tim Hortons,
Nothing much more Canadian than that. That's great.
Yeah. And obviously I've not lived in Canada that long, but people outside of Canada will ask me about Tim Hortons. It's very hard to explain how ingrained in Canadian culture Tim Hortons is. It is literally everywhere, and everyone seems to indulge all the time in Tim Hortons.
Oh, 100%. That and ice hockey, which Canada squeaked out a victory today. We're happy to see it. They're playing for a medal now, so that was good.
I know, which is very, very exciting. So, well, look, let's you and I could probably talk all day about non-business stuff, but let's crack on with the business stuff. You've had an amazing double exit journey in the kind of staffing world. So what I think might be helpful for our viewer and listener, just to kind of kick things off, is maybe just give us a kind of in a nutshell version of the two businesses that you grew, however you want to do it. If you want to kind of go chronological or compare them, and then we'll maybe then swing back and talk about the kind of the trajectory of both and how the growth came about. And I'm really interested to hear how you did it differently second time as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I got into the wild world of IT staffing back in 1998. That was back when the craze of the .com years was in full swing. And if you could spell Java, you were probably getting hired. It was an insane period of time to join the industry. And, as soon as I entered it, I thought, wow, this is just a license to get rich. It was that nuts. And so I worked for an employer, a local Toronto company, and spent 9 years there. Of course, the bottom fell out in about 2001. We had the .com crash, which basically decimated so many people in the industry. And it threw me for a loop because that was my first exposure to any sort of recessionary factors. And it really put me back on my heels. And I quickly realized I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So I went back to committing myself to relearning what I thought I knew about the business and really submerged myself into educating myself on the techniques that really separated the winners from the also-rans in this highly competitive world of recruiting, which I'm sure you've experienced yourself.
Yeah.
So I spent 9 years at that firm, learned as much as I could, became a top biller. They got acquired by a big US competitor, and I saw the owners walk away quite happy with that. And I thought, well, do I want to be running the front lines like I'm doing for the rest of my days, or do I want to maybe take a leap of faith and start my own firm and my own journey? I had all the reasons in the world not to do it at the time. I had a newborn and a 1-year-old and a mortgage and a wife who didn't work, but she was, God bless her, very encouraging and supportive of my aspirations. So me and a partner decided to put together a business plan and just finally take that leap off the edge and start our first staffing firm. And it was a heck of an experience. It was called Redwood Global. We started that in 2007. And we ran that up for 7 years, grew it quite nicely, very nicely. In fact, we were one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. And we were just flying so high, and we were getting some knocks on the doors. And I thought, you know what? We've had such a great run. I've never had an exit before. I think it would be nice to have an exit, sort of lock in a lifestyle and take the chips off the table before who knows what could happen. So we did some soul searching and agreed that, it might be smart to to do just that. And we found fortunate enough to find a great buyer. They were the largest staffing firm in Canada. They made us a fairly generous offer, and we took it. So I stayed on with them. Yep, go ahead.
Just before you move, I'm just interested. You talked about it being one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. Do you mind sharing what some of the key aspects of was there a specific catalyst to the growth? Was something specific that business model? Was it just the tailwinds of the market? I'm sure it's a combination of factors, but it'd be interesting to unpick for some of our kind of audience who are.
It's a good question. I think the playbook for us was to focus on bigger picture, sort of long-term plays. And there's two real catalysts to growing a business successfully in our space anyways. It's the caliber of talent you're able to attract to work for your organization. And it's also the quality of clients that you're able to attract to work with you. So those are the two real key drivers of growth. Neither of which are easy when you're a startup. When you're a startup, attracting top talent to come work for you is difficult because all they see is risk. And the same goes for clients. If you want to work with the major clients in Canada, which in many cases, in our case, we were focused on the major banks, the big five banks. Again, they see risk when they see a smaller player. So we knew it wasn't going to be easy and it was a tall mountain to climb. But we planted those seeds early and we planted them often. And, when it came to building our team, I'd go and call around to our biggest competitors and I'd talk to their, top billers. And I just have a script that I pitch them and say, listen, I'm sure you're doing great where you're at. If things ever change, here's what we can offer. And I had a real great value proposition. And I knew that I probably wasn't going to close them on the first call, but my goal is to just be top of mind that if their situation ever changed, and most of the time it does, through circumstances, I wanted to be the destination that they spoke to first. And so we were able to build our team out one by one. And it's an interesting phenomenon. You get one top player from a big competitor. They come in, they see how differently you operate, how your comp plan is better, the environment's better, the management's better. They start telling their friends back at where they worked, hey, it's great over here. And then they become your best advertising. So it's all about getting those first couple of people into this chair, and then it can just go viral and explode if you do it right. So that was a real key focal point for us.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. And I love what you said there about it's almost like a domino effect, right? You get a couple of the key ones and then word spreads. Did you messaged that you had a great package for them? Did they have equity and shares and things like that? Were you mindful of, or was it just more the overall package? Obviously, recruitment packages can be very commission based, or they can be higher salaries. How did you think about that?
We thought about it for the first go round. We ultimately decided against the equity play, and I'm glad we did. And I can explain why when we tried it the second time around. But equity can make things a bit complicated, a bit messy, especially when it comes time to exit. And if you have people departing ways, and how do you deal with the shares and all these conditions. So we didn't end up having to do that, fortunately, but we did offer very attractive compensation plans that included accelerators. So we were all about sharing the wealth. We were of the mindset that, if you come work for us, you're basically running your own small business within the larger umbrella. And we believed in sharing the wealth. And if you were able to grow your business within, the company, we would ensure that you're compensated accordingly. So we had accelerator plans that basically rewarded people for achieving certain revenue thresholds that would just really give them supercharged earnings as they leveled up their business. So they were highly incentivized to grow their practices, beyond what even their expectations were. And I think that was part of what we were able to really help with our staff too, was just giving them that feeling that, wow, the ceiling is a lot higher than I thought it was, and just pushing them beyond what even they thought was possible. And that was really effective.
I love how you describe that kind of like grow their practices. It's something that in the marketing business that I found many years ago, we toyed with almost creating mini agencies within an agency for that exact reason, was this sense of like, someone in that team would effectively lead it and take responsibility for growing it like its own little mini business. So it's interesting to hear that that's
Yeah.
what worked well? Did you have were they competitive within? I imagine these
Oh, yes.
recruitment guys and girls, like they are competitive beasts, right? So
Absolutely.
were they all trying to out, which ultimately probably worked out well for you because you're sitting there being like, hey guys, the mothership's doing well here.
Absolutely. You wanted to strike a healthy balance between obviously some sense of internal competitiveness, but not to the point where it got cutthroat. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many competitors out there trying to cut your throats. You don't have to look over your back and inside your own office. So we were collaborative but competitive. And I think the real idea was to let's push each other. And by pushing each other, we're all going to get stronger collectively. And as a result of that, we were able to build a real strong team of A players, such that if we ever had a C player on the team, like the A's would get resentful to the point like, we got to get rid of this person.
This guy, yeah, it's like self-selecting, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay, so take us to you. I cut you up before in terms of where did you obviously sold this business, the first one, and then what happened after that first transaction? I mean, well, congratulations, because I imagine after 7 years to build something to sell it,
yeah,
in this kind of staffing spaces, it's quite rare actually. Is certainly in my understanding. I don't know specifically about the Canadian market, but did you have to go and do an earn out of the acquiring company? Because obviously you then went and did it again, which obviously is the second part of the journey.
yeah. No, the first one, there was interestingly no earnout component. There was a holdback period, I guess, to keep us off the competition radar. But it was only a 2-year tie-up. I was offered a job as a vice president with the acquiring company, which I took. And I stayed on with them for 18 months, integrating the business and leading the teams, but also learning about sort of how a bigger agency ran. We kind of peaked out at sort of our sort of learning curve, our comfort zone, if you will, with Redwood. And we knew that if we wanted to grow it bigger, we needed some different skill sets and some different competencies in the organization, like a CFO and other layers of probably human resources. So it was good to get exposure to that, because I figured if I'm ever going to do something again, it'd be nice to have some tools that could maybe take me beyond where we were with Redwood. So
it's really smart. Really smart that. I just like, so if I just summarize and if I understand, you effectively, rather than just kind of get out as quickly as possible, you took it as an opportunity to say, okay, how do these guys integrate acquisitions and how do they actually operate at a bigger, more sophisticated? That's very cool.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that. And we parted ways a year and a half after that. I dabbled in a software startup myself with another partner. That was kind of a Uberification, if you will, of the staffing agencies. I was trying to create a marketplace. And that was an interesting journey. That was sort of a side quest that I thought, we're seeing all these marketplaces dominate all these industries. It's probably going to happen with staffing. So why not maybe take the lead on that? But I did find out that this is an industry that is very high touch, very human oriented, and trying to automate it through sort of a marketplace was a bigger challenge than I'd expected, which also gave me the confidence that there's actually going to be a place for bricks and mortar staffing firms for unforeseeable future, because that's just how the business is done. So that gave me, I guess, an increased confidence to, again, go back in and start
do it again.
round 2. Yeah. Which I wasn't planning to, but
I was going to ask you that. When you were doing your kind of your time in this first like when the first acquisition happened, and if you don't mind me asking, was it kind of like not have to work again money, or did you always feel like actually that you wanted to do more and drive into another business?
It was at the time, never have to work again money. I mean, within reason. And again, it's not like it was the difference of I can fly first class occasionally. I won't be flying private, but I can be okay.
You were fine.
I was fine. So that was important to me, because it's not necessarily a guarantee you could repeat type of success that they had the first time round. But I did realize that I probably wanted more, and that's an interesting thing that happens once you exit a business too. Is the cash flow from the business is not coming in anymore, and you're left with this bucket of money, and you have to make that last. And it's a weird feeling, because if it starts to deplete, then you start to get in this sort of panic mode, which is never comfortable, not for me anyways.
I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. I think
Yeah,
that's a really interesting topic. So
for
that's why
sure.
your interview is so interesting, because it's like I could do 2 interviews with you, Ryan, because you've done it twice. So
Yeah.
talk to us about then, and I'll kind of come back to the transaction and transition elements of both a little bit later. So talk to us about the second kind of talent business that you did.
Yeah.
In your mind, was it kind of like, okay, I'm now armed with all the stuff that I learned first time, I'm going to go again, but do it in a different way. Curious to see how you obviously grew the
Yeah.
second one so successfully. And was it different, or was it like a same playbook?
My role was different, which was a good thing. I wasn't like the first go around was so all in. Like it took every ounce of my fiber of my being to get that to be to the level it was, and it was a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of fun. But I wasn't sure I had that in the tank to do again from ground zero. Like I was doing everything the first go around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had a partner who's 15 years younger than me. He was an employee of mine at my first venture, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I've been thinking, I want to do what you did, and I need you as my partner." And so he came to me with this business plan, and I wasn't thinking about going back into the business, but he came to me with a business plan, and I knew he had the energy. He'd done a great job when he was working for me at Redwood, and he had the leadership qualities that I was looking for. So I said, "Look, I'll be your partner, but here's the conditions. I'll put the money up. I'll help you with the playbook, the strategy. I'll help you build a team, hire the right folks, but you're going to run it day to day. I'm not going to do that. And in exchange for that, you're going to get a nice salary. I'm not going to take a penny. We're just going to share dividends down the road. There won't be dividends coming in for a few years, but I'm a patient man. I don't need the money now. So
Yeah.
if you're comfortable with that, then that works for me." And he was like, "Wow, that sounds like a fantastic deal." Because it de-risked it for him. He didn't have the nest egg that I did, but so I was, giving him the salary and gave him the breathing room to grow the business. And there's, quite a bit of capital infusion that comes to running a staffing firm, especially when you're running contractors.
And you used this was your money, right? This was
Yeah,
taking the nest egg from the first one.
that's
And,
right.
and this partner was different to your first partner, right? I'm
He
assuming it
was.
was a different,
He was.
okay.
Yes, different partner. And I said to him, the only commitment I ask is that 5 years from now, when this is a real big business, you don't have any resentment that I wasn't there on the front lines every day doing the managing of this. And he assured me he wasn't. And to his word, we obviously grew quite a bit bigger than the first one, actually, which was phenomenal in about a 7-year period. But it was just a wonderful relationship. It worked perfectly well. And just a great ride home.
How big was the second business? Whatever you could, like,
Yeah.
was it the staff numbers or whatever?
We were over $40 million in top line revenue.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Was your second exit similar to the first exit from a financial perspective?
This one was a little bit bigger.
Wow. Amazing.
And so, yeah, it worked out exceptionally well.
Amazing for this young guy that you worked with as well, right? Like 7 years. And what a, I'm sure it wasn't, and we'll get into this because I'm obviously it was bigger, it was faster, it was a bigger exit. So what were, obviously you talked first time about the talent and the client quality. Was there anything from as an entrepreneur, we make so many decisions, right? Like, was it the same playbook, or was there anything in particular? Like, was it the sector you worked in or whatever?
I would say the idea was to go to market. Again, there's a lot of competitors out there. And when you're a client and you're getting cold called by every staffing firm in town, a lot of the pitches all sound the same. So we had to find a way to cut through the noise. At the time when we started this, it was 2017, and in the tech recruiting space, the real hot space at the time was Agile methodology, DevOps. These are buzzwords, but they were really key elements of the technical stack at the time. And hiring managers at companies were really in short supply of these resources. So we positioned ourselves as experts in these domains. We actually hired on sort of a retainer basis, some consultants, some high-end consultants to go with us on client development meetings and sort of do the dog and pony show, pitch our services. And it was extremely effective at opening doors with C-level decision makers. So that was sort of our go-to-market strategy that enabled us to sort of have a different approach than a lot of our competitors. That was the key door opener. But then ultimately the playbook kind of defaulted back to the first time around. It was, we're going to build a team of A players, attract the best from our competitors, and we're going to go after the A plus clients. Because those A plus clients will hire generally during good times and bads. When you're working with the major
Of
banks,
course.
they're 70, 80, 100,000 employees. Doesn't matter what the economic conditions are, they're going to have needs. But above and beyond that, the value of those agreements to a potential acquirer in the future is enormous too. So when an acquirer is looking to enter a market, they're going to want to have those key clients as well. So those agreements are worth their weight in gold. And so we focused on, again, building an A list of clients and an A list of staff to support them.
I love how you make it sound so simple, but that's actually quite a hard thing to pull up. Before I move on to the kind of transaction elements of both, did you find yourself competing against your first company? Because it sounds like you were in a similar space. I'm sure obviously there was a...
I think so. Yeah, probably. I mean, it was 3 years beyond when I sold the first business. So I was well beyond the non-compete, any issues on that front. It's a pretty sizable market, but yes, did we service some of the same clients? Absolutely. And we actually enjoyed competing against them because very often we would outperform them, which was nice for us. Exactly.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so amazing. Well, incredible success story. Obviously, it sounds like the key themes are picked up there. Hiring the A players, hiring the A clients. But actually, you had a playbook that worked, and almost you didn't overcomplicate it. Is my reading of it. Like you actually kept it simple to what worked. And then in terms of the transactions that you did, were they different in style? Like, for example, did someone knock on the door both times, or did you actually shop it and take it to market both times? Or actually were they different transaction processes?
In both cases, we weren't actively shopping around. We got knocks on the door. The first time, I guess the differences between the two, the first time was we went exclusive with the company that ended up acquiring us, which may not have been in our probably best interest, but we felt that the deal they gave us was fair. But it's always nice to have some competitive tension there. So the second time around, we did end up getting two interested parties kind of coming out of the woodwork at the same time, which was, I guess, fortunate for us. I wasn't really of the mindset of wanting to sell the business, but one of the promises I made to my partner who hadn't had an exit was, if you ever get to the point where you feel you want to take the chips off the table, I'm going to respect that because I was in that situation. And if you feel the need to do the same, I won't stand in the way. So that was a commitment I made to him. And I was quite happy to continue running just riding the company because it was kicking off good cash flow and I love cash flow. So,
did you have a salary? You had a salary, you had some actual real cash coming in, so you didn't have to,
I just had dividends. Yeah, he had a salary. Yeah, it was great. So, but he, ultimately he had a young family. He built a nice house for himself, had some debt he wanted to clear the table of. So, I just deferred to him and I said, okay, if we're going to do it, then we're going to make sure we darn well get the best possible deal out there because we're not giving this sucker away. So, I said, that's the one commitment I will make is I'm going to make sure we sell, we're going to get a fair price. So we did have these two competitors. One was Canadian based. The other was out of New York, sort of both private equity backed funds looking to build onto their platform companies. And it was quite an interesting process. The two bidders kind of went back and forth, and we actually thought we were going to go with the Canadian one up until the last minute, and the American firm stepped in and made us an incredible offer. So we ended up going that direction, and it worked out really well. We have an earnout component for this second one, which my partner is still actively working to achieving. We're through the first year. We made the full target on that, so that's great. But I'm actually fully out of the business.
Amazing.
So, just sort of.
Maybe he resents you a little bit now. I don't at this precise moment in time, maybe your partner's like, God, I don't know. Maybe he's enjoying the.
I think he is enjoying it. Yes, he's been able to again access some skill sets and senior leadership that. Again, I think he's getting an education on the running, how to run a bigger company as well. So I think he's really enjoying it, his time there. And I won't be surprised if he stays on for the long term with them. So we'll see how it goes.
You mentioned obviously having a bit more competitive tension. When you did the second transaction, was there anything else that you did differently versus the first time around, like that you learned? I mean, it sounds like first and foremost, you were a little bit more not hands-on, as in you obviously been hands-off for the business, but when the transaction came about, I imagine you could bring some
Oh,
wisdom and
yes.
experience and be a lot more
Yeah.
involved in that aspect. Was there anything else that you did differently or that you were more mindful of the second time around?
Yeah, I was the lead voice on the transaction because I certainly had my battle scars from the first go round. I knew for sure if we were going to have maximum value on exit, we had to have ironclad agreements with our clients, our contractors. We had to have crystal clear financial books and reports because the diligence phase is, as you can appreciate,
Correct.
horrific and yes, all consuming. They leave no stone unturned, and they would typically look for ways to whittle down the sort of
Of course.
price that they
Yeah.
indicate on the LOI. So wanted to make sure we were in a maximum position of strength to keep the terms we'd agreed to intact, and we did that. The piece I was a little unsure of was the earnout component. I've heard sort of pros and cons from having an earnout because you're basically, the company is now owned by somebody else and they can have some degree of influence over your future earning potential. So there was a bit of money at risk. So I guess the way I, justified it in my head was, we're going to sell the business with this earnout component, but if none of those earnouts ever come to fruition, are we still okay and happy with the amount of money we receive for the business? The answer is yes, then it's probably a deal we can proceed on. But if it's the type of structure where unless we hit every piece of the earnout, it's going to be a failure, I wouldn't go forward with that. So I guess we did get to a point where we thought, okay, we're getting a good fair price up front and these earnout targets are reasonable. So it made sense for us. So that was the one nuance between the two deals that was different.
You kind of talked about the books being clean, and almost I get the sense you were diligence ready the
Oh,
second
yes.
time round.
Yeah.
What else? What made the businesses, both of them, so valuable? Right? Was it the quality of the talent? Was it the clients you had? Did you have recurring revenue? You mentioned cash flow. Like, in my experience of being part of a recruitment businesses, they can be very lumpy, right? The revenue can be very lumpy depending on the business model. And so I always, I always think about like, well, what makes a talent business attractive?
Yeah.
And it could be a niche, right? You guys had a niche in that tech space. I'm sure it was a combination of things, but again, I'm trying to, for
Absolutely.
our viewers and listeners, like what makes a business like yours valuable, like a staffing business?
Absolutely. The typical valuation metrics are a multiple of EBITDA earnings before
Yeah.
interest taxes. And there's two components to a staffing firm. There's the permanent placements, which kind of describe the lumpy aspects that you described. And that's where you place a candidate at an employer. The candidate's a permanent employee of that company. They give you a one-time fee for it, and the transaction is complete. The other piece of the business that we focused on was the contract hiring, which is a company will engage you to provide them with a time and materials resource. So basically an hourly paid employee. And those folks will generally get deployed for a 6-month contract at the start. But if they do a good job, and this is quite typically what we see at the banks, they'll get renewed. So we'll place these contractors, say we'll place somebody for an $80 an hour pay rate. We'll build them out at $100 an hour. So we achieve a $20 per hour margin. And you build that book of business. Like our goal is to keep adding contractor heads. So by the time we sold or my latest company, Core, we had over 400 contractors actively working in the market. So it's the type of business that sort of, you're buying an annuity when you're come in as an employer and you pick up this company. Day one, you're inheriting a business that's generating the earnings off of 400 people actively working. And so if you could show a track record of growth and stability on that revenue stream, then it gives a buyer peace of mind that, okay, we're buying something that's going to, again, just generate cash flow day one in an ongoing manner. And that's how you really justify those higher valuations. So that's what we
so
did.
interesting. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
very cool. Very interesting to hear how you did it. And obviously you had that specialism in the tech kind of space, and you were working with big banks, and all this type of stuff probably
Yeah.
made you even more attractive. Okay, cool. And actually, one final question about the transaction. You said it was a US based private equity. Did the P company buy you directly, or were you part of a roll up for an existing portfolio company that they already had?
Yeah. We were part of an existing portfolio company based out of New York. And we were their, I guess, primary technical acquisition in Canada. So yeah, they bought us to get access to the Toronto market.
To the Toronto
And
market. Okay,
yeah, so
interesting.
they've left the name of the business alone, and sort of I think as far as my partner is concerned, it's been over a year, and it's kind of business as usual, which I believe is smart because you're buying a company for the brand recognition it has. So I think I can appreciate they'll want to integrate it over time, but they didn't rush to just rebrand day one. I think that would have been detrimental. So they've been smart about easing their way into the transition, and as a result, the staff has been largely retained. There's been very little turnover, and the business has continued to grow. So I
Yeah.
think overall, it's just been a win-win for everyone.
It's an interesting point that actually, and it's funny, having done many of these interviews now, Ryan, I see when things go wrong tends to be a very hard integration or a poorly planned integration, or trying to
Yep.
force the fit. And actually, I've seen success. Most of the successful acquisitions are just leave them doing what they are for a
Yeah,
period of time, and there might be a longer term plan. But once the hard integration happens, it's when the wheels tend to come off. So it's
it's
interesting.
so true.
Okay, so and then I kind of, again, I'm trying to trying to do this in a way that covers both of your exits, but we obviously covered a little bit about the transition first time around, and you invested, I think you said, in a software, you tried to do a software product, and then you ended up obviously creating your second business, which is interesting. If your younger partner had not rang you and said, "Hey, do you want to start another business?" Do you think you would have?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it was
Yeah,
always,
absolutely.
it's an interesting, because I mean, is that you said, I think, I don't know how you describe it, you kind of blood, sweat, and tears in that first business, right, Ryan? And like, it's almost like, oh my God, why would you do that again?
I
But
know.
you
Well,
did.
I've had a lot of time to reflect over the last year that I've sort of since I've divested of this most recent venture, and I guess my goal really was to achieve, I guess, what I call escape velocity, and that was to achieve enough capital such that I would never really have to work again. I could live off of the income generated by that capital. I feel like I've achieved that, but at the end of the day, you sort of it's the kind of scenario. It's like when you achieve all your hopes and dreams, you finally wake up and your problems are still the same, but your hopes and dreams are gone. And so it's kind of that interesting feeling is like, I should be completely fulfilled and just, working on my golf handicap and traveling the world. And I'm doing both of those things. But I do realize that I love business. I love, the action. I love growing companies. I love working with smart people. And so I do feel like there's another chapter still to be written.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm looking for the right opportunity to do that now.
And I'm going to come back to that in a second. I think what I want to do is applaud the first, you already had that first exit, and you navigated a second business really, really well and got yourself a second exit, which again, I think is an amazing achievement. And you probably kicked the can down the road of probably what you're dealing with now, which is, by going back into the business. So I just wanted to kind of give the kudos for that, because that's incredible that you have achieved a kind of a double exit, and that kind of dilemma and that paradox of having everything you want from a financial perspective, but almost still feeling fulfilled, like unfulfilled in some way, is bizarre. And we are very mindful of people watching and listening that are not exited before. They're like, what the hell are these guys complaining about? It makes no sense. But to your
Yeah.
point, I think the problems still exist, and actually having money and not having that identity creates a new set of problems that you don't necessarily see coming. So where you are now, then, you talked about, I wanted to put a note to come back to the point you said earlier about this bucket of money versus cash flow. Now you're back there again, presumably, right? You're
Yes,
back in the
yes,
same, but the bucket of money is more significant now, hopefully, and based on your second transaction. Do you still want some dividends and something kicking off, or are you now at a
I
point
do.
in your life where you're a little bit okay right now?
I do. Again, I'm comfortable. I'm pretty much set. I mean, keep in mind, I'm also 10 years older than more at 12 years older than I was on the first exit. So
Yeah,
I can't live forever. So I have more than I need now in terms of capital to get me through. Um, but I'm only 52. Most of my friends are still working and, downtown and hustling around doing things. I mean, so it's interesting because there's not many people of my age who are in this situation that I can hang out with or have these conversations with, which is, it's a different vibe. So I mean, my golf partners are most of them in their 60s because I'll play midweek and they're retired. Um, I'm not quite there yet, and I'm not. So I feel a little bit of guilt for being in this situation. It's like maybe I should be doing something productive. I mean, I'm still in the prime of my life. I've got lots of gas in the tank, and I'm certainly wiser than I was 10 years ago. So I've got a lot to offer. But yeah, I'm just. I guess I can afford to be choosy about what I
yeah,
sink my teeth into, and that's really what I am doing. So I'm taking some time. I'm having lots of conversations, lots of meetings with different folks. But ultimately, it's a blue sky opportunity, and it doesn't have to be staffing related. It could be something completely different. I have
yeah,
a feeling
yeah.
I'll just know when I see it what kind of opportunity will get me excited to get back at it.
Yeah, and I kind of get the impression there's a bit more of a thoughtfulness and calmness this time around to take your time. And I'm not saying that wasn't their first time, 'cause I didn't know, but I get the impression you kind of like eager to get back into doing
Yeah,
something first time around. Whereas this time you seem a bit more reflective and calmer. And before jumping into anything, as you said, you can be choosy, right?
that's true. Absolutely, definitely a different mindset now than last time.
How's your relationship with wealth and money evolved, given the success that you've had? You don't strike me as a showy. I mean, you said, I
No,
mean, I know the area that you live in and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you have a nice house and all that kind of stuff, but like, you don't
yeah,
strike me as a particularly flashy
no.
guy or anything like that.
Yeah, material possessions don't do a lot for me. I have a nice house, I have a cottage, um, but I don't think I want more property. Maybe a vacation home somewhere down south, but nothing too extravagant. I'm very experiential driven. I love good experiences, so traveling is high on my list of things I like to do. I love golf. I have a couple of golf course memberships, so I play that a lot. And that's not an inexpensive sport. So I do have some, expenses, expensive tastes and things like that. But yeah, as far as material things go, I've got more than I need really on that front. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do like,
I
I
mean,
mean, I guess the money to me it's a tool to provide the freedom to do the things you want. And
want to
that's
do,
how I
yeah.
view it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I view it.
Very, very cool. And you remind me because you mentioned golf a couple of times. The first time in my life, I must have been early 20s. The first time I met a guy who had sold a business for a lot of money, and we were pitching to do some work for this guy, and he'd sold a TV channel in the UK, and then he'd come back to launch another TV channel. And I asked him, I was like, "What?" Like, just out of curiosity, like, why did you move back from Spain? And he said something. I always remember this. He said, "Hey, there's only so many games of golf, and there's only so many nice lunches you can have at a marina before it starts getting boring."
He's
And that
bang
was
on with
that,
that.
and it really stuck with me because I remember getting the train back that day, back to where I lived in the northeast of England, being like, wow, that guy's crazy. Like, why? And he's got everything. But actually, like, as time's moved on and I've met many people like yourself, and yes, the hobby thing, like having golf or soccer or
Mhm.
tennis or gym or whatever, like is so important to be able to fill that time with something that brings you joy. But it was
Yeah.
a real kind of, this guy's like, you know what? I came back a bit like you, he actually came back into the market he left once
Yeah.
his non-compete was done. And he basically did exactly the same thing again and built a very successful business. And so, yeah, your kind of story reminds me of that. And do you have kids and family or anything like that? I didn't ask you before.
I do have two sons, 19 and 20. Um, off in school and getting ready to launch their own journeys, whatever that looks
Good
like
for them.
yet. So yeah, going to be empty nesters soon, and then really have a lot of time.
Yeah, you've got some serious time. Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful what you wish for. I mean, when you're deep in the weeds of working and stress and all you can think about is, boy, I could just play golf every day and eat those nice lunches at the marina. It does get tiring after a while, and you do find yourself wanting more. So that's actually, it's real. Lived it.
And a final question was, I have 3 boys, right? And they're kind of younger than your kids, right? So I have a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 13-year-old, and like in thinking about not having spoiled kids, right? And actually having gritty, hardworking kids who appreciate what we have. We live a very privileged life, like yourself, all about experiences. Like we have a nice house, but we don't have fancy stuff. We don't fancy handbags or watches or whatever. And, we came back from, for example, we came back from a 5-6 days all inclusive in Mexico. And as you know, the weather's been awful.
Of course.
So it was a nice break. And but it's a fine line, right? Because you don't want them to get so used to this lifestyle that they think it's kind of get on a plate. So just interested in your your kids have lived through this, and they may have lived through, mom and dad had a bit, and then all of a sudden we had a lot, and then or maybe they just don't feel it because it's just what you do. I'm just curious what your experience has been like being a parent, going through this, and thinking about how you communicate and educate your kids. And I'm sure it's an ongoing battle, but I'm just curious because you've been through it.
It is. Parenting advice is not. I mean, it's a tough job. I mean, it doesn't come with a manual, so all you can do is try and be the best you can. I really worked hard to try and instill work ethic into my sons as they've grown up. I've provided for them, but not excessively, and I've always instilled the importance of hard work. I mean, hard work really is the key to success. So I've tried to hammer that into both of them. They're both different people, though. I mean, one is certainly a little more hardworking than the other. I won't mention which one. I think they probably know if they hear this podcast. But as much as we try and create the circumstances and environment for them to grow up the way we hope they will or we want them to, ultimately they are their own people, and that's something you have to come to respect. Is that their outlook on life may be different than what you had hoped for them, and they're going to have their own journeys and make their own mistakes. And these are things that I'm having to come to terms with, and bite my tongue on as they grow. As experience is the best teacher, I guess. I try and help them avoid the mistakes I made, but sometimes they just have to go and make those mistakes themselves. So it's an interesting journey. It's wonderful and frustrating and all the emotions in between. But they're good boys.
Like running a business.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. Probably is tougher. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think parenting is the toughest gig of them all. Well, look, Ryan, honestly, this has been so much fun spending some time with you, and we're gonna have to hang out because we live not that far from each other.
For sure.
And I co-lead the Toronto post-exit founders group. So I'm not sure if you're involved in that, but I'm going to hit you up and send you the information about that, because it'd be great to have you at one of our events and meet other people like yourself that I think you'll really enjoy the company of the gang that are there. But I just want to say huge thanks, because you've been so kind to share this time and the wisdom, amazing success that you've had with both your businesses. You seem like a great guy and so calm and level-headed, and no surprise that you've had the success. And and I wish you all the success in whatever the next chapter looks like, because I'm sure I feel like you've got something else brewing or left in you, whatever that may be. Who knows? But you don't strike me as being ready to hang up the boots, so to speak.
Not quite. So stay tuned. We'll see what the next chapter holds. But thank you so much for your time, Raman. And I definitely look forward to meeting with you at those founders meetups. That sounds right up my alley. So thanks again for all you're doing. Okay. Take care.